somewhere in the Hindu Kush mountains of northwest Pakistan, in 3 valleys so remote that the only road in was not paved until the 1990s, there are roughly 4,000 people with light skin, blue and green eyes, and a polytheistic religion that worships 12 gods and goddesses. They make wine. They hold communal dances where men and women celebrate together. They sacrifice animals to deities with names that predate Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. They do all of this in a country that is 98% Muslim, surrounded by communities that call their homeland Kafiristan, the land of the infidels. Their neighbors on the Afghan side were massacred or forcibly converted at the end of the 19th century. None remain. These 4,000 are the last, and for centuries they have told anyone who would listen the same story. We are the descendants of Alexander the Great. His generals settled these valleys. His blood runs in our veins. It is a claim so old and so persistent that Rudyard Kipling built an entire novel around it. The Man Who Would Be King is based on the idea that a lost tribe of Greeks survived in the mountains of Central Asia. Then, geneticists tested their DNA. The Alexander theory did not survive. But what the DNA actually revealed about the Kalash is, in many ways, more extraordinary than any connection to a Macedonian king. I first came across the Kalash while reading about genetic isolates in South Asia. I expected a curiosity. What I found was one of the oldest unbroken human lineages still clinging to existence on the planet. Start with what made the legend so believable. When you look at the Kalash, the Alexander theory feels almost obvious. Their features are strikingly different from the Pashtun and Chitrali populations surrounding them. Lighter skin, eye colors ranging from blue to green to hazel, facial structures that European observers consistently described as Western. Their language, Kalasha Mandar, belongs to the Dardic branch of the Indo-Aryan language family, which shares deep roots with ancient Indo-European linguistic traditions. Their religion is a form of ancient polytheism that scholars have compared to pre-Zoroastrian Indo-Iranian traditions, with gods whose names echo across Vedic and early Persian texts. When Kalash elders gather at festivals, they speak of a man named Shalakash, a general they say led soldiers into these valleys after a great campaign. Some scholars have suggested this name may refer to Seleucus Nicator, one of Alexander's actual generals who ruled the eastern territories after Alexander's death in 323 BC. The story has been passed down for so many generations that it functions less as a claim and more as an identity. To be Kalash is to be descended from warriors who came from somewhere far away and chose to stay. Alexander the Great did invade this region. That is historical fact. In 327 and 326 BC, his army marched through what is now northern Pakistan, fought battles in the Swat Valley, crossed the Indus River, and pushed into the Punjab before his troops refused to go further. Garrisons were left behind. Greek-influenced kingdoms persisted in the region for centuries afterward. The Gandhara civilization, centered in what is now Peshawar, blended Greek artistic traditions with Buddhist philosophy for over 500 years. So the idea that a remnant Greek population could have survived in isolated mountain valleys is not absurd on its face. It is geographically plausible. It is historically adjacent. And it was believed by almost everyone who encountered the Kalash for over 2 centuries. Then, the genetics arrived. In 2015, a team led by Qasim Ayub at the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute in Cambridge published a landmark study in the American Journal of Human Genetics. They analyzed DNA samples from 23 Kalash individuals living in 3 separate valleys. The study used genome-wide data to compare the Kalash against populations from across Europe, Central Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. The results were unambiguous. The Kalash showed no evidence of Greek admixture. None. Their genetic profile did not cluster with Greek populations. It did not cluster with any European population. The Kalash were something else entirely. The study found that the Kalash represent an extremely drifted ancient population that diverged from a common West Eurasian and South Asian ancestor thousands of years before Alexander was born. The researchers linked their genetic signature to Paleolithic Siberian hunter-gatherers and ancient northern Eurasian populations. Their isolation was not centuries old. It was millennia old. Ayub's team concluded that the Kalash have been genetically cut off from surrounding populations for thousands of years, shaped primarily by genetic drift in extreme isolation rather than by any single historical admixture event. A 2014 study had previously estimated a period of genetic mixing between the Kalash and Western Eurasian populations occurring somewhere between 900 and 210 BC. That window technically overlaps with Alexander's, but the 2015 Wellcome Trust study dismantled that interpretation. The mixing, if it occurred at all, was far more ancient and far more diffuse than a single military campaign. The Kalash were not left behind by Greeks. They were already there. They had been there for so long that their DNA had drifted into a configuration that does not match any other living population on Earth. A 2025 study published in Scientific Reports reinforced this conclusion. Researchers analyzed 98 Kalash males using autosomal and Y-chromosomal markers. The Y chromosome haplogroups they found, G2A2, J2B2A, and R1A Z93, are associated with Neolithic and Indo-Iranian lineages, not Greek ones. The autosomal data showed the Kalash possessing a unique genetic structure distinct from Asian, European, and African populations alike. They are not Greek. They are not South Asian in the conventional sense. They are a genetic island, surrounded by modernity, but anchored to a lineage that may stretch back 12,000 years or more. And that lineage is disappearing. The Kalash once numbered as many as 200,000. They ruled the Kitral district and the adjoining valleys of what is now Afghanistan for centuries. Then the pressure began. On the Afghan side, the population that shared their culture and faith, the Nuristani, were forcibly converted to Islam at the end of the 19th century. The region was renamed from Kafiristan to Nuristan, meaning Land of the Enlightened. Every polytheist on that side of the border was either converted or killed. The Kalash in Pakistan survived only because their three valleys were so remote that organized campaigns could not easily reach them. But the erosion has been constant. Mosques were built in their valleys. Islamic missionaries became active. Young Kalash face economic and social pressure to convert. Those who do convert often cannot return to Kalash social life. The population has fallen from 200,000 to roughly 4,000. Their language is classified as endangered. Their festivals, which involve open dancing, wine drinking, and mixed gender celebrations, are increasingly viewed as provocations by surrounding communities. In 2011, a Taliban raid on a police post near the Kalash valleys prompted the first-ever deployment of Pakistani army troops to protect the area. In 2014, the Pakistani Taliban released a video explicitly calling for jihad against the Kalash, threatening death for anyone who refused to comply with Islamic law. 4,000 people, 3 valleys, 12 gods, and a genetic lineage that predates every empire that ever tried to convert them. The Kalash are not the children of Alexander. They are something older. Their DNA carries markers that connect them not to a 4th century BC Greek army, but to migrations that took place when the last ice age was still ending. They have survived in the same mountains for so long that their genome drifted into a pattern that exists nowhere else on Earth. The legend of Alexander gave them a story the outside world could understand. The genetics gave them a story that is harder to tell but far more important to hear. They are not a remnant of someone else's empire. They are their own. And there are 4,000 of them left. Paul here. If this one matters to you, subscribe. The next one reaches further than any of these.